Okay, so for this assignment, our group has been assigned to write a report on a movie based on the topic of communication. Communication, by definition, can be seen as the exchange of information by speaking, writing, or any other medium. Communication is essential for humans as we tend to rely on it to gather knowledge, talk to other people, as well as expressing feelings. The movie we chose this time is The Terminal. The Terminal is an amazing movie starring Tom Hanks as Victor Narowski, who is stuck in John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York because the U.S. Border and Customs and Border Protection took away his passport and flight ticket. As the movie progresses, we follow Victor's experience living in the airport whilst English not being his first language. Due to being born in Krakosia, English is not commonly used. Therefore, it was hard for Victor to understand and speak in a foreign language. So, in an attempt to better his English, he starts to read magazines and newspaper articles that were lying around in the airport. During his stay at the airport, he meets this woman named Amelia, who is also a flight attendant that Victor starts to gain a liking towards. Amelia is among the many people Victor starts to befriend in the airport, including tourists and also people who were working around at the airport. Victor tells Amelia that the reason for his trip was to get an autograph from Benny Golson, a famous jazz musician, on behalf of his father. His father wanted Benny Golson's autograph because it was the last one he needed for his collection of many famous musicians. And this story moved Amelia. Nevertheless, his stay at the airport isn't easy because a man by the name of Frank Dixon tries to make it hard for him and wants to get him out of there. After 9 months of living in the airport, a friend of Victor tells him that the ongoing civil war in Krakosia had finally ended, which means Victor can finally go into New York and finally get Benny Golson's autograph. In a final attempt to trouble Victor even more, Dixon threatens him with deporting Gupta, a friend of Victor who is also a janitor in the airport, as he would feel bad if he was the reason that Gupta was deported. Victor reluctantly agrees to get sent back to Krakosia without getting Benny Golson's autograph. Upon hearing this story, Gupta runs in front of a plane, which results him in being deported. Victor is finally able to go into New York and get Benny Golson's autograph. And after getting it, Victor enters the taxi and says to the driver that he is going home, which signals the end of the movie.
Hi, good morning everyone. Today I'm going to be explaining about the key factors from this movie that is related to our topic, which is communication. I believe that everybody has already understood a little bit here and there about what the movie is about from what my team member has explained before. So key factor number one would be that this movie contains a lot of non-verbal communication. For example, earlier in the movie, when Victor Narowski arrived in New York City, something happened in his country and he's detained at the airport. And Frank Dixon, who is the director of customs in New York City, wanted to explain to Victor Narowski what was happening in his country and why is he detained at the airport. But because of the language barrier, the director of customs was speaking in English and Narowski couldn't understand much of English and had to use props to explain to Narowski what was happening in his country. So he used a bag of chips and an apple and slammed the apple on the bag of chips and explained how his country is at war right now. Even then, Mr. Narowski understood only like 50% of it. So this moves to the second example, which is nonverbal communication as well, where he couldn't understand much of English, but he could understand via visuals. Where when he got out of the room, he saw on TV screens there were news about what is happening in his country, Krakosia, and he understood via videos of war that was happening in his country. Moving on to the second key factor that is related to our topic communication would be language barrier and how Mr. Navarsky tackled it and adapted to the English language. So firstly, he started comparing things like certain actions and certain words. For example, he saw the phrase wet floor on the floor, the signage, wet floor, and he saw how people were walking on it and people kept falling down. So he knew that wet floor meant wet floor in his language. Second example would be when throughout the days he started going to a bookstore and he bought two templates of New York City, you know, those city guides. He bought two of it, one in English and one in his native language, which is Russian. And at night he would read them both and started compare word to word. And one of the words that he learned that was shown in the movie was friends, and how the English word friends meant something in his native language. Third factor that relates to our topic communication would be communication breakdown due to language barrier. So towards the end of the movie, you could see that there was this another Russian guy who arrived in New York and he wanted to fly to Canada, so he was in transit, but he brought pills for his father in Canada. But the pills couldn't go through to Canada because then he needs to clarify it on a certain form, but he didn't. And when the US Customs confronted him about it, he thought that they were threatening him and he felt threatened, so he was throwing a tantrum and making a scene in the airport, so he was locked up. Due to the communication breakdown from the language barrier, he thought that they were threatening him and he thought that they were gonna hurt him, so he was throwing tantrum. And superhero for the day was Mr. Navarsky, because towards the end of the movie he already understood a lot of English and he became the translator because the man was also from Russia, which is his native country. So yeah, that's all from me, and those are the three key factors that are related to our topic communication. Thank you.
My name is Nora Ain Fadehai, and I will explain about important lessons from the movie Terminal that we choose. So, the first important lesson is knowledge and communication. So in one scene, Victor saves a man's life with his knowledge of Russian language. He becomes a hero of the airport when he helps a man, supposedly from an Eastern European nation, has mentioned that he needs to take home for his dying father in Canada. Victor's rumor is spread by Gupta, who saw the image of a brave hero to save a member of minorities. Eventually, he is kept under control over Frank Dyson, who has Tyrant's character, because he is the important person that has an ability to manage the terminal and has to command his assistant. So Thurman is as the sidekick host always to what Dyson's commands, such as to attack Victor. So every knowledge is an opportunity. It might not affect yourself as much, but it might be very helpful for others. Communication in the context of information offers information in an organization. Managers often communicate to fulfill social needs through interaction of some kind. Communication also impacts the relationship between manager and staff, which also affects the performance of work. So the next important lesson from the movie is acting rationally and don't give up. So patience is not only a virtue, but an attitude to life which can be achieved solely through attention to inner journey. So patience is something that is chosen. It's an active and intentional waiting, which goes from an attitude of trust towards the essential goodness of life. This movie influences us to be more patient and calm in a difficult situation. For example, in his positions, most might not know what to do and panic, while Victor is very calm and on his team. So for example, when Victor finally realized he was stuck at the airport with no money, soon after he landed himself a job at a construction site in the airport by accident. We also get a lot of moral values from this movie, especially from Victor. When his life is on weight, he still managed to keep his hopes up. He never gives up. That positive attitude can motivate us that even though he faced difficulties of today and tomorrow, he still have to never give up. We need to learn that the world won't blow up just because our plans get changed or delayed by something unexpected. This thing teaches not to give up. Especially in an organization, managers need to be calm in dealing with employees in order to make perfect decisions. Emotions need to be controlled so it will not impact the decision making and ruin the working flow.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Wamaizatul Khalida. So I will be talking about important lessons based on movie The Terminal by Steven Spielberg. So what I can see from this movie is that nonverbal communication can be used in organization. So how does that work? Nonverbal communication is where the manager or the higher up communicate with their employee, how they communicate with each other. So, for example, how they talk, the tone, the body language, for example. So, by doing this thing, by observing their behavior, their body language, so it will help to improve their relationship. So, for example, in one scene, Victor Navarsky, when he first came to USA, his passport can't be used because there's something happened in his country. So he stuck in the airport. He can't step a foot in America's land. So during his time there, he can't speak English. So he learned English by himself. So by going to the bookstore and by observing passerby, basically. Towards the end, he know English. So the lesson learned here is that there are many lessons learned from this scene. But what I want to say is that we need to not give up. Don't give up. Keep on learning, and knowledge is power. So before going to other country, we need to learn their culture. We need to have backup plan, and at least know their language if you're going to somewhere else where they don't speak your language. Next is horizontal communication. So what is horizontal communication? This communication can be used between colleagues, between worker and worker. So to avoid miscommunication, we can use this to, like, for example, by working together, resolve problem. So by using this communication, it will help improve relationship between worker and worker. For example, in one scene, Victor and Guptarajan is a cleaner in the airport. He basically don't like Victor. For some reason, he thinks that Victor is a Russian spy because he's from Russia. So, but towards the end, he learns about Victor as he hang out with him. So, as the time passed, he became a mutual friend with Victor. So, in conclusion, don't give up and don't judge people. Always be good to people. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Rain Shira, and today I would like to present group views related to the topic. Every communication involves at least one sender, a message, and a recipient. This may sound simple, but communication is actually a very complex subject. Based on the movie The Terminal by Steven Spielberg, Victor Nagorski is a resourceful man from Eastern European country. Krakow finds himself stranded in the International Transit Launch, New York's John F. Kennedy Airport. As English is not his first language,
Victor did not speak English, thus no one could efficiently communicate with him, leading him to be socially isolated. He even knows a few basic English words, which is yes, no, and also New York City. When he see the news about Krakow, from that he gains a few information about what is happening to him. He starts to gain much data just from watching those videos. It is here that he starts to categorizing and making references to English from his native language. Other than that, Victor also managed to improve his English by reading newspapers and pamphlets about New York, both in English and also his native language. Even though his English is not that perfect, he can interact with people in the airport and also manage to get a job. This film has done a brilliant job in demonstrating an understanding of how a language can be taught. This film illustrates that it is not a straightforward journey to learn a language, and may not be completed. This movie also showed how important it is for individuals to not give up and be constructive. As for Victor, he never give up. He always find ways to learn English so that he can know what is going on with his surrounding. So that's all from me. Thank you.
All in all, we use communication in everything we do in life, and it is very important to us. In the terminal, we can see that Victor struggles to communicate with people in the airport because of the language barrier. And as the movie goes on, we can see that he tries to improve his English by reading magazines and newspaper articles. By doing that, Victor is able to then befriend people at the airport, including tourists and also the airport employees that were there. As we can see, communication has helped Victor on many occasions in this movie and somewhat eased his stay at the airport. Communication is fundamental to us. We rely on it to do our daily activities and live our lives. Without communication, humans wouldn't have been able to be how they are right now and progress in life as how they are right now. Thank you.